August 1942. Mukibila Airfield, Palestine. Technical Sergeant Dusty Miller of the 57th Fighter Group, United States Army Air Forces, stands over the 5th Allison V. 1710 liquid-cooled engine music that has failed catastrophically in the last 96 hours. The engine is completely gutted internally, music pistons scored, cylinder walls eroded, valves welded shut by overheating. Miller is 29 years old, a master mechanic from the Oklahoma Panhandle, and before the war, he kept farm tractors running during the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, one of the most choking, abrasive environments on Earth. He has no formal degree in aeronautical engineering and no factory training on high-performance pursuit engines. What he does have is brutal, hands-on experience with what dust does to internal combustion. The problem in the Middle East isn't just the heat, it's the sand. If you want to discover how improvised junk filters saved hundreds of P-40 Warhawks in the African theater, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share forgotten technical stories music just like this one. The desert terrain here holds a specific type of sand that pilots call music fesh or moon dust. These are microscopic silica particles, 10 to 50 microns in diameter, that remain suspended in the air for hours after any vehicle movement or wind gust. The dust is so fine it penetrates conventional mechanical seals and is absolutely lethal to high-performance aviation engines. The Allison V. 1710 is a masterpiece of American engineering. A 1,710 cubic inch V12, supercharged, delivering 1,150 horsepower at 3,000 revolutions per minute, music with manufacturing tolerances of mere thousandths of an inch between pistons and liners. It was designed to operate in the temperate, clean air of the continental United States, where dust particles are minimal. Music here in the desert, the Allison is operating in conditions it was never built for. Every time a Warhawk takes off, the engine sucks down approximately 85 cubic feet of air per minute through the carburetor intake. In this desert, that air packs about 0.003 ounces of silica dust per cubic foot. This means that for every minute of operation, the engine is ingesting roughly 1 to 2 pounds of microscopic abrasive material directly into the cylinders. The dust acts like industrial sandpaper at 3,000 revolutions per minute. The silica particles erode the cylinder walls, score the pistons, embed themselves in the compression rings, contaminate the lubricating oil, music, and clog the glycol cooling passages. An Allison engine operating in normal stateside conditions can run 400 to 500 hours before requiring a major overhaul. Here in the theater, the Allisons are dying after just 35 to 45 hours. The Germans don't have this problem. The Messerschmitt Bf 109 FS flying from Axis bases are equipped with Daimler-Benz DB601 engines that feature tropical air intake filters designed specifically for desert operations. These filters reduce airflow by about 8%, but they eliminate 95% of dust particles before they reach the cylinders. The Americans have no equivalent filter. The War Department back in Washington has been working on a tropical filter design for months, but mass production won't reach the front lines until late 1942. In the meantime, the P-40 squadrons are losing engines faster than the supply chain can ship replacements. Music. Miller is examining the 5th failed engine when he notices something specific. The erosion isn't uniform. The rear bank cylinders show significantly more damage than the front cylinders. This music tells him something important about the airflow through the induction system. The dust music is being sucked with higher concentration toward the rear of the engine, likely because the intake manifold design creates a flow pattern that slings heavier particles toward the back cylinders. If we could filter the air before it hits the manifold, music, he tells the engineering officer, Lieutenant David Harrington. Miller, the Army has been trying to design filters for months, Harrington responds. It's not as simple as slapping on a screen. I'm not talking about screens, sir, says Miller. I'm talking about inertial separation. Harrington looks at him with skepticism. Miller explains. Back in the Dust Bowl, they used cyclonic separators on John Deere tractors to keep the black blizzards out of the engines. The principle is simple. You force the contaminated air to flow in a circular pattern inside a cylindrical chamber. The heavy particles are thrown against the outer walls by centrifugal force. They drop to the bottom of the chamber, while the clean air is drawn from the center. And you propose building a cyclonic separator for a pursuit aircraft? Not exactly, says Miller. I propose something simpler. A pre-filter box with baffles that force the airflow to change direction abruptly. The sand particles, being heavier than air, can't change direction that fast. They slam against the baffle plates and drop out. The air keeps flowing. Harrington considers this. What materials do you need? Sheet aluminum, scrapped intake headers, steel mesh from old oil strainers, and 48 hours. You have 36 hours, says Harrington. Operations are ramping up, and we need every Warhawk on the line. Miller starts that afternoon. The design music is brutally simple, because it has to be. There is no time for computational fluid dynamics music or wind tunnel testing. Miller is working with engineering intuition and basic physics. He fabricates a boxy aluminum chamber, roughly 16 inches long. Inside the chamber, he installs 3 baffles angled to force the air into a tortuous path. The air enters through a side port, is forced to jaggedly change direction 3 times, and finally exits through a central port into the carburetor. The sand particles, unable to make the turns, lose momentum and fall into a collection trap at the base. The trap has a dump valve that can be popped open manually on the ground music to clear the accumulated grit. In theory, it should work, but theory and reality in combat conditions are 2 different things. Miller installs the prototype filter on AP 40 Warhawk music of the 57th Fighter Group at 2,200 hours on August 15th. He works for 4 hours under the dim glow of a kerosene lamp, mating the filter between the chin intake and the Allison carburetor, sealing the connections with improvised gasket goo. By 200 hours on August 16th, the installation is complete. At 0630 hours, they run the ground test. Flight Officer Marcus Webb, a 24-year-old pilot from Texas, cranks the Allison. The V-12 roars to life normally. Webb increases power gradually from idle to 2,400 revolutions per minute, music then up to max continuous. Miller watches the gauges. Manifold pressure, 42 inches of mercury. Normal. Cylinder head temperature, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Within range. Oil pressure, normal. But the critical factor is power loss. The improvised filter, by creating resistance to airflow, will inevitably reduce the engine's music horsepower. The question is, how much? If the loss is greater than 10%, the design is a non-starter because the P-40 is already at a performance disadvantage against the Bf-109. Webb pushes the throttle to war emergency power. 3,000 revolutions per minute. The instruments indicate roughly 1,090 horsepower. Normal rating for an Allison without a filter is 1,150. The loss? 60 horsepower, approximately 5.2%. Acceptable, music says Webb. I'd rather have 5% less power than a dead engine after 40 hours. The real test will be in the air. At 0915 hours on August 16, 1942, Webb takes off in the modified Warhawk for a combat patrol mission over the desert sector. Flight duration, 1 hour and 45 minutes, including 12 minutes at combat power during a scuffle with enemy bombers. Webb lands at 1,100 hours. Miller inspects the filter immediately. He cracks open the dump valve on the collection trap. Approximately 12 ounces of fine, tan powder pour onto the tarmac. That is 12 ounces of abrasive grit that would have otherwise gone straight into the engine block. But the true proof is the oil analysis. Miller drains a sample of engine oil and examines it under the light. The oil is clean, lacking that gritty consistency that normally appears after desert flights. He filters the oil through a white cloth. Residue is minimal, comparable to engines operating in clean stateside conditions. The filter works. Over the next 7 days, Miller installs improved filters on 12 Warhawks of the 57th. Each installation takes about 5 hours. Pilots report a power loss of 5 to 7%, but in exchange, the engines are running significantly smoother and cylinder head temperatures are running 15 degrees cooler. Music after 40 hours of operation. The Warhawks equipped with Miller's filters show zero engine failures. The Warhawks without filters continue to die at the same rate, 35 to 45 hours average lifespan. Music. The group commander summons Miller on August 24th. Sergeant, I need these filters on every P-40 in this group. That's 47 aircraft. How long? Music. Miller runs the numbers. Sir, if I can train 6 extra mechanics and get enough sheet metal, 8 days working around the clock. You have the men and unlimited access to the boneyard. Start now. During the next 8 days, Miller and his team work 12-hour shifts, riveting sand filters onto Warhawks across 3 squadrons. They consume 300 feet of aluminum sheet, 47 modified intake tubes, 188 hand-cut baffles, and approximately 800 rivets. By September 2, 1942, all 47 Warhawks music are equipped with the Miller modification. The results are meticulously documented by the engineering officer. In the following 8 weeks of intensive desert operations, the Warhawks equipped with Miller filters averaged 210 hours of operation before requiring a major overhaul. This represents a 450% increase compared to the 40-hour average of unfiltered engines. 210 hours means an engine can support approximately 130 to 150 combat sorties instead of just 25 or 30. The operational impact is transformative. Squadrons that previously had to rotate aircraft constantly due to engine swaps can now maintain readiness rates of 78%, compared to 41% pre-modification. The news spreads through the USAF and RAF units. By September 15th, 6 additional squadrons have adopted the Miller design. Music. By September 30th, the modification has spread to 14 squadrons operating P-40s and Spitfires in desert conditions. The War Department in Washington, confronted with overwhelming field reports, sends a team of engineers from Allison and Curtis Wright to Africa in October 1942 to evaluate the Miller modification. The engineers expect to find a crude contraption needing extensive refinement. Instead, they find the basic design is so effective that music it requires only minor tweaks. The official report from Allison dated October 18, 1942, describes the Miller filter as an elegantly simple solution utilizing sound principles of inertial separation, implemented with field-expedient materials under extreme time constraints. The design is officially adopted music as the Tropical Air Filter Series modification in November 1942. Factory-produced versions begin arriving at units in North Africa by December, but many crews continue using Miller's improvised filters because the mechanics already know the design and can fix it with scrap metal. The legacy appears in the aircraft availability statistics. Post-war analysis by the Army Air Forces shows that squadrons equipped with Miller tropical filters, or the factory versions based on them, maintained operational readiness rates 47% higher than squadrons without filters during the desert campaigns of 1942 to 1943. Music. This translates to approximately 340 Allison engines saved from premature failure and an estimated 1,800 additional combat sorties that otherwise wouldn't have been possible due to grounded aircraft. Dusty, Miller survived the war. He was awarded the Legion of Merit for exceptional technical innovation that significantly increased the combat capability of units under extreme conditions. After the armistice, he returned to Oklahoma, where he worked as a consultant for heavy equipment manufacturers, designing filtration systems for tractors operating in dusty environments. Miller died in 1978 at the age of 65. His obituary music in the local paper mentions his service in the Army Air Corps and his later work in farm machinery. It does not mention the sand filters. It does not mention the 340 engines saved. It does not mention the 1,800 combat sorties that existed because an Oklahoma mechanic understood that desert dust could be defeated with basic physics and sheet aluminum. Sometimes, the best engineering solutions don't come from corporate research labs or design teams with years of aviation experience. They come from a technical sergeant with experience in the Dust Bowl, access to a scrap pile, and the understanding that heavy particles can't change direction as fast as air. The Miller filters demonstrated something fundamental about innovation under pressure. You don't need exotic materials or revolutionary designs. Sometimes you just need to understand the physics, have access to simple tools, and feel the urgency of 47 engines dying faster than they can be replaced. The North African desert in 1942 was one of the most hostile environments for high-performance aviation engines, but thanks to a mechanic who understood inertial separation better than the engineers back in Indianapolis, it became an environment where American Warhawks could operate with reliability comparable to temperate Europe. What do you think of this story of American ingenuity music in the African desert? Did you know that a mechanic with tractor experience solved a problem that had frustrated factory engineers for months? Leave us a comment and let us know if you've heard of other field innovations that saved critical equipment. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of technical innovation under extreme conditions. Each week we rescue forgotten solutions that deserve to be remembered. Hit that bell icon so you